gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Mayor Mike Duggan.
And we could always count on the fact that our fortunes rose and fell with everybody else. We were the backbone of the middle class. And now you look, and the people of this community see a disconnect. They see parts of the country doing well, parts of even our own city doing well, while others are left behind. But I had a choice to make, and that was, should I take responsibility for the city services that are there, do the best I can, and prepare for the most smooth transition as possible October 1st, when the emergency manager leaves, or should I take the politically easier way and criticize him for the next 9 months? And I gave that a lot of thought, but at the end of the day, I really felt that the people of the city of Detroit were going to be better served if we put aside our differences and sat down and tried to work professionally. So you've seen in just a few weeks, we have worked together and created a new public lighting authority, a new land bank, a new Department of Neighborhoods, and we've united on legislation in Lansing to deal with the scrap dealers buying the illegal scrap. These are the things we should be working together on. So if we're going to do a turnaround, where does this team start? And in my mind, everything starts with a job. That's what you need to deal with crime. That's what you need to deal with blight. But in the city of Detroit, for the 60% of Detroiters who don't have cars, a job means a reliable bus system. Well, how bad is it? We have a 53-year-old veteran who lives on Detroit's west side, who has a job where he works a 12-hour shift, 4 in the afternoon to 4 in the morning, sorting produce for the supermarkets in our region. He rides Line 38, the Plymouth Road bus, from Plymouth and Evergreen, about 5 miles west, to his job in Redford. And he realized very quickly after taking the job that more often than not, by the time the bus got to Evergreen, it was so full, the driver wouldn't stop and let him on, right? We don't have enough service on the road, something Detroiters are very familiar with. And so 2-3 days in a row, he was passed up, and he found himself in danger of being fired. And so this man did the only thing available to him. He went across the street, and he got on the Plymouth Road bus, and he rode eastbound till it got to the end of the line. And then he waited till it turned around, so he was sure he had a spot, because that's what he needed to do to get to work. But after a couple weeks, he started to get sophisticated. He says, you know, maybe I don't need to go to the end of the line. So as he was riding eastbound, he's watching out the window for a westbound bus that's got some seats. And when he sees one stopped at a light, he leaps out of the bus, dashes across Plymouth Road, pays a second fare, and rides the bus back to Redford Township. This man leaves his home 2 hours early to travel 5 miles. When people want to know why the unemployment rate in the city of Detroit is twice the state and national average, there are a lot of reasons. But our residents often have to face obstacles that people in other communities wouldn't dream of. And it's the job of the leadership in city government to try to eliminate those obstacles, to try to give our residents a chance to participate in what's happening in this country. So how do we do that? Well, Dan Dirk started off with a good first step. They extended about 14 routes late at night, almost till 1 a.m., because we have a lot of people working a 4 to midnight shift, and it allowed them to get a ride back home. But extending the buses late at night are easy. Our problem is, as we all know, the middle of the day. We need 220 buses on the street during the peak times, and on a good day, we put out 180. And on a really cold day, as our citizens know, we don't get out that many. And so, what are we going to do about it? Mr. Dirks has already started by hiring 20 additional mechanics to get them back in the garages to start to fix the buses. This weekend at Cobo Hall at the job fair, we're going to hire another 20 mechanics and another 40 drivers, so we have the staff that we need to provide the service. But that isn't going to solve it by itself, because we have pretty much the oldest fleet in America. The average lifespan of a bus is 12 years. You retire them after 12 years. Our average age is approaching 10 years. We simply don't have the buses to get on the road. This week, I signed a request to the Obama administration, to Transportation Secretary Anthony Fox, to ask them to provide immediate support to get to the city of Detroit 50 new buses. Yes. Normally, you order a new bus, it takes 2 years in this country to get it delivered. But they found a way for us to piggyback on another city's order, and we're going to have these buses on the street this fall. We're going to start to make a difference. But when I say change is immediate, at least for one rider it is. Because yesterday, we added a bus at 3 in the afternoon on Plymouth Road going west to Redford. So we at least got all of the jobs in this region you can't get to by bus. And what does that mean? We need a car. And what's the single biggest barrier to driving a car, as every Detroiter knows? Car insurance. Eh? When I moved from the suburbs to Detroit 2 years ago, our car insurance went from $3,000 to $6,000. We moved less than 15 miles. Okay? It is not justified. It doesn't matter if you have a perfect driving record and never been in an accident. Most Detroiters are paying more a month for car insurance than they are for the car payment itself. And so we've got to eliminate these obstacles. The Detroit City Charter provides that the city of Detroit can start its own insurance company. We have to do a joint feasibility study between the city council and myself. And so we're putting together a team to move on this quickly. We're going to start our own insurance company that we call D-Insurance. And yet, in the city of Detroit, 1 in 6 of our babies are now born prematurely, 50% higher than the rate of the community around us. And the frustrating thing is that in the last 3 years, there have been medical breakthroughs in this country that fight premature birth very effectively. A worldwide breakthrough 3 years ago, right here in Detroit at Hutzel Hospital with Dr. Sonia Hassan of Wayne State University, discovered that the use of progesterone can help mothers carry babies to term in a much greater rate. At Yale University, they've got breakthroughs that are showing that we can cut our premature delivery by 30 or 40%. And the problem is, we haven't extended these treatments even in our own community. So we're going to see if we can do something about it. So this spring, Dr. Hassan, along with our public health director, Vern Anthony, and David Cotton from Meridian Health and our partners at DMC and St. John's and Henry Ford, are going to roll out a new initiative we're going to call Make Your Date, in which we reach out to the doctors in the hospitals of this region and to the pregnant mothers, bring the latest medical procedures, and make it a point to try to get every baby possible delivered at full term. And of course, if we're going to get the babies a good start, we need early childhood education. Right? We've seen the research. We all know what it says. 4th graders read and do math at a significantly advanced level if they've had a good preschool education at 4 years old. They graduate from high school at higher rates, and yet half the at-risk children in this city are not getting preschool education today. Well, here's a time that we can practice bipartisanship, because Governor Snyder has proposed in this year's budget a $65 million expansion of preschool education, a program that would make available preschool education to every child in this state that needs it, and I will be up in Lansing lobbying with him to make sure this gets passed. When it comes to children, we ought not to have partisan politics. The parks in this city last summer were an embarrassment. All right, we said we had 150 open, but realistically, out of 300 parks, we maintained 25 in a way that were usable. It just wasn't acceptable. And so I'm proud to say, under the leadership of our operations director, Gary Brown, we've managed to redesign the park maintenance system so that this summer we're going to have 150 parks open and well-maintained. It's a step in the right direction. But 150 isn't good enough. We need to do more. And so we've reached out to the clergy and the business community, asking the ministers and the churches in this town to adopt parks. And we've set a goal, and we're on our way to get another 50 parks maintained by the clergy and the businesses in this community, so we get up to 200 parks open for our kids. And so in March, we are going to redouble our efforts. If you have not enrolled in Obamacare, we will have somebody every day on the main floor of City Hall at the Coleman Young Center. We're opening up at 5 firehouses across this city, enrollment sites on Mondays and Wednesdays. We're also doing it at 3 recreation centers. You can check on the cable TV channel and on the website to see when we are there. But we have got to do this because, here's the thing, I spent 9 years in the hospital business. I can't tell you the number of times I saw people crippled by strokes when it could have been prevented with simple blood pressure medication. The number of times I saw people diagnosed with terminal cancer when it could have been prevented if they'd been early for detection. If you are uninsured, you live sicker, you suffer more, and you die earlier. With the Affordable Care Act, there is no reason for you to be uninsured. Please take the time in the month of March to sign up and get the health care coverage that everybody deserves. And we know it's not where we should be. For a city this size, we should have 25 ambulances on the street all the time. And right now, we're struggling to get 15. I want to start by thanking Roger Penske and the business people in this town who donated the 23 vehicles that we do have in operation today. Those vehicles truly have been lifesavers, but we're basically running them 24 hours a day because we don't have enough equipment and we don't have enough drivers. So again, we're taking steps to fix it. This weekend at the job fair, we will be hiring 70 new EMTs. And with the emergency manager's approval, we've just put in an order for 15 new ambulances that will be here this summer. We had a new plan in place to roll across this city with brand new LED lights twice as bright as the old sodium lights. By the end of this year, more than 50% of the neighborhoods in this city will be fully lit, and by the end of next year, they'll all be lit. But we have a lot more to do. We took an important step a few weeks ago when we started to deal with the unfair property tax assessments in this city. All right? If you lived in downtown or midtown, your taxes stayed the same or maybe went up. But if you lived in almost any other neighborhood in this city, we dropped your tax rates 5 to 20% because you had not been charged fairly, and we wanted to make it more affordable for you to stay in this community. When I started here 7 weeks ago, the neighborhood strategies were pretty interesting. We had the federal government HUD in our blight program, the state housing authority. We had the city building safety and engineering department. We had the blight task force. We had the blight authority. We had a land czar. We had a state land bank. We had a city land bank. And we had a county land bank. Every one of them with good ideas, and every one of them going a different direction. You go through the neighborhoods and you wonder why we're not getting anywhere. But we worked together quickly. City council and the mayor established a new land bank. Sean Donovan, the HUD director, came to town from Washington and got behind our program, said he was going to work with us. Scott Woolsey, the state housing authority director, said, I'll step back from the state land bank. You're on the right track. And we have created a single program. And I promised to do this in the campaign, and I'm happy to tell you tonight that we've done it. Because as I said at the forums all during the campaign, when something goes wrong in your neighborhood, who do you call? There's been 14 different phone numbers and 14 different agencies. Well, tonight, We have one single Department of Neighborhoods headed by Charlie Beckham, one entity. And as everybody's heard me say 100 times in the campaign trail, it is not enough to demolish our houses. There are a lot of houses in the city that are vacant, that are perfectly solid. They are good homes. If we are going to build the population of the city, we're going to have to move people in. And when I was in the prosecutor's office, we filed suit against the owners of those abandoned houses. We took those houses and we sold them on the internet like eBay. We moved in families who wanted to live there. Well, now I'm happy to say that with Beth Niblock coming back up from Louisville, we're going to reopen that auction site. And starting in April, we are going to start to move through the city, neighborhood by neighborhood, and we are going to sue the owners of the abandoned houses again. We're going to work with you in the community. We're going to knock down the ones we can't save, and we're going to move people into the ones we can. And we now have to add another piece of the program, one that I'm really glad to have to add. When I was in the prosecutor's office, we had a drug house program. There were so many drug raids, and we had the same houses raided 5 and 6 times, with the police risking their lives each time, that we started a program that after the first time the drug house was raided, we'd send a notice to the landlord, say, if it happens again, we're taking the house. The second time we went in and seized the house and we sold it to a family. In the last few months, we have a need to start that program again because we got a police chief who's raiding 35 houses a week. And we're going to work with Chief Craig to send out that notice every single raid so his officers don't have to hit the houses more than once. We can take back these neighborhoods. And as we go and try to fix up these houses, we're going to have another obstacle. The scrappers, right? They are tearing this city apart. We have had school buildings shut down because they pulled out power lines just in the last couple weeks. We got street lights in entire neighborhoods out because they took the copper. We have got houses that people have tried to repair, and the scrappers have come in and pulled it out. And urge the state legislature to move immediately on House Bill 4593 to start to deal with these unsavory scrapyard owners. And here's what the bill does. It says 2 things. If somebody comes into your scrapyard with a catalytic converter, with an air conditioning unit, or with copper wire, you can take it, but you have to either mail them a check to an address or hold that payment for 3 days. Those are the requirements. Nearly half the states in America have this restriction. And so we want to make sure they're not selling on phony IDs, which they are. Make them mail the check to a real house. And we have one other requirement. Just for catalytic converters, air conditioners, or copper wire, you have to take a picture with a clear image of the seller. As I close tonight, I have one last group to thank, probably the most important group, and that's the 9,000 men and women who work for the city of Detroit today. All right? Many of them you see on the street, the police officers who have stepped up their law enforcement activities very much in recent months, the firefighters who are courageously going into blaze after blaze, the EMS workers working 12-hour shifts in the most difficult of circumstances, all after they've taken a 10% pay cut, had their health care costs increased, and are dealing with an uncertain pension situation. Where I just ask the employees, what's going on? What ideas do you have? Because we've been hearing how our employees are not delivering good service, they don't care, and the like. And I have been deeply impressed with what I found. The employees aren't in denial. They know we're delivering poor city services. They know what's being said about them, and they want to change more than anybody. And here's the thing I know for sure. The greatest experts in how we improve our service are not the consultants we hire, it's the men and women doing the job every day. And so we are now creating a new culture. And I wish you could hear them, because in these meetings, we've had employees give us very good strategies for how we're going to cut the ambulance response time, how we're going to speed up vehicle repairs by improving the parts purchases, how we can speed up the collection of trash on vacant lots. They want to be a part of the solution, and to every one of those employees, I'm going to tell you this. Every place I've been, the turnaround has been driven by the men and women of the organization. And in this administration, you are going to have leadership that listens to you and involves you, because we need to all work together to give our residents the kind of service they deserve. When I stood here on the inaugural day, I said to the people of Detroit, give us 6 months. Let us prove to you that we can make city government work. I didn't mean that we're going to solve all the problems in 6 months. It's going to be a long, hard fight. But I did believe that we could demonstrate to you in that time that the mayor and the council could work together professionally, and we could take on these problems, and we could start to make a difference. And so, after 7 weeks, I'll report this to you here tonight, what I believe for sure. The change has started. The change is real. And Detroit is not nearly as far away from turning around as most people think. Thank you all very much. All right?